and welcome to Violin with Paula. I'm Paula and this is Francesco, and we're on week 12 with the Kreutzer challenge. So diving right in today, we're on Kreutzer Etude number 12, which is in A minor, and there's a few things I want to talk about technically about this before I play it for you. So the first concerns what to do with the bow in a piece like this. So if I just play you the first few bars. You can see that it ends at the heel, and then the very next thing you've got is a slur of two semiquavers. So the temptation is to start at the heel again and use all of the bow, but that kind of creates a weird accent and an almost rubato effect, which is a very kind of violinistic thing to do, so it may sound I haven't played it like that before, and it's quite satisfying. So that's definitely one way you could go about it. Maybe I'll experiment later and see sort of what disaster we end up with. But just to be aware that if you end up here, you have a few options. You can actually just bring the bow down in the air. Think of it as you're sliding your left hand down, you're also sliding your bow down. So you start in the middle of the bow. And that way, if you want to, for example, start with a sort of piano and crescendo up, you can do that. It's a bit tricky, but it's totally learnable. And then the second thing that I wanted to talk about is intonation. Now, a piece like this is very tricky to play in tune. I've got fresh strings on, so that's going to be my excuse for not playing it in tune. But something really to be aware of is how you're shifting in relation to the bow. So this is a common problem I find when teaching, is that people think their left hand is not making a note or not getting there, but actually the problem is their bow's just getting there first. So a really good example of that would be in the second bar, when the fingering that I'm doing is 1-1. So there's a couple different ways you can do this shift. You can do it on the down bow, lighten up the end of the down bow, and then as soon as you start the up bow, you're on the new note. That's fine. It does rely on your absolutely coordinating the start of the up bow with when you've arrived in time for the shift. And that sort of shift is often where I find people thinking that their left hand can't find the shift, whereas it can find the note, it just doesn't find it by the time the right hand has gone to the up bow. So another way to do it, and even a temporary way to practice or a completely fine way to play it in real life, is to do the shift on the new note. So in this case it's an up bow, it might be a down bow at a different time. So your bow kind of waits, your left hand is in the same time, and then all you have to do is, the moment you hear that you're in the right spot, that's when you really sink in with the bow. So that's a good way also even just to practice it, to get used to where the shifts are. And then you can gradually make that quicker and quicker motion with the bow and with the shift. But I highly recommend, if you're struggling in a piece like this, especially thinking your left hand's not quite making it there, really examine whether it's your bow getting there first. In fact, generally I find if you're having a problem with your left hand, see what your right hand's doing. If you're having a problem with your right hand, see what the left hand's doing. It's often something else unrelated that's causing an issue, and it's just the hand that you think is the problem is just maybe not being given the time it needs. And then the third thing that I wanted to discuss was the idea of low, medium, and high positions. So we're all used to things like first position, second position, third position, and so on. So, you know, first position, here, second, and so on, up the string that was on a first finger. Well, in a piece like this, when a lot of what you're doing is slightly stretchy stuff, so there I'm playing the first note with an E, which is an E with my third finger, and then the fourth finger on an A, which is a fourth higher, so it's quite a stretch there. It can be useful in a piece like this, and there's lots of other similar examples around here. It can be useful to think rather than specific numbered positions of just being low, medium, and high. So everything that's sort of like first-ish position, give or take, maybe the Brits call it, I think, a semitone, and the Americans a half step. So anything position, maybe even up into what we would call second position. And then medium position is sort of anything where the hand, and it's the hand position that's the real thing. So it's not necessarily what number position you're in, but what your hand is doing and what your hand's going to be doing. So if I give an example here. All this stuff here is in third position. And then when I go up with the hand here, that's still all, it's a couple of different quote unquote number positions, but the hand doesn't really change. Whereas in different places, like this as well, you see my wrist position. It's technically second to fifth position, but it's just sort of fudged a little bit. So this could be another useful thing to think of when you don't want to think necessarily too much about this position, this position, this position, and just think in terms of, okay, is my hand sort of down here? Is it kind of up here, sort of near touching the violin, or is it up here? And remembering that up here on the E string and up here on the G string are quite a different feel. And so with that, I'm going to play my original version of this etude, which is not going to be too fast and probably won't have the very dramatic violin stuff, but God, that's satisfying, so I might do it again with that. Enjoy. Doing an unedited YouTube performance to find out where the bits are where you haven't quite figured out your fingering. So for me, this is, and then anytime I'm doing an A minor arpeggio up top, there's two possible fingering options. The one I'm doing most of the time, which is 1-1, 3-4, but then also you can do 1-3, 1-4. And the reason I've chosen not to do the second one, although I'm now slightly regretting that choice, is because it's a much bigger shift, and it's about this idea of small, medium, and large positions. Again, small, medium, and high, rather. Low, medium, and high. This is quite a significant shift, and when you're playing fast music, you kind of want to avoid doing significant shifts because they're longer, they take more time. That, the 1-1, I can just sort of, again, don't really need to move the arm. 1, 3, 5, I really do need to see the arm is rotating around. So it's a time-saving mechanism. The problem is there's two spots in this etude where it doesn't work, and if you've got bar numbers, those are bar 18 and the other bar that's similar, which is bar 28. So in bar 18, starting from 17, no, I'm terribly sorry, that one is fine. It is, which one is the bottom? It's 21 and 22, where we start higher. And you can see I do not know this piece as well as I should if I'm going to be performing it, because I don't know exactly where are the spots that are problematic. And interestingly, a slightly poor lighting conditions, I had the fingerings written in, but I couldn't quite read them, which is why I stumbled, because my brain went to the default. all performance tricks and tips, things you should figure out before going live on YouTube. So that one you have to do the bigger shift. So then really the question is, why don't I just do the same shift all the time? And that's a very good question, and maybe I should, because then I'd be less likely to confuse which shift I'm doing. So little insight into the mind of what goes on when you're performing. It's an interesting thing actually, figuring out fingerings and just knowing what the pattern is and how well you know the piece. And another thing that is a bit difficult there is actually the way this is written out. And I'm not saying these are excuses, these are just things that affect how the brain can read the music. Is in bar 2, at least in my Henley edition, there's no 8VA sign written, so it's quite easy to see what the notes are, and you can just read it as that's going to be an A minor arpeggio ending with an A. However, in the second time, even though it only goes up a third higher, there is an 8VA, and that suddenly really messes with your brain, because you can't read the pattern in the same way that you do when it's all just going up. So, all interesting things. I'm now going to try it again. I'm going to see if I can, on the fly, change to the 1-3-1 fingering, which is probably going to end up in a very sharp A. So getting that fourth finger in tune and low enough when you're this high is actually quite difficult. Things get very small. And I'm going to try the ridiculous over-the-top violin playing, complete with all the gestures. Oh, hello Nutmeg, you've come to join us. Nutmeg went for a very long walk this weekend, so she's been sitting around trying to get in her dog bed, which I've kicked out of the way for this video. She's looking very pathetic now. Enjoy. Slightly obnoxious, but quite fun, and it's quite enjoyable. So let us know which one you prefer, or record them both styles yourself, or an entirely new style. I'd love to hear someone play this one pizzicato. It'd be a great pizzicato exercise. Anyway, thanks so much for joining, and hope to see you next week. Bye!